Vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. The world get vaccinated before it's too late.
I want to encourage the community members. I think I actually also say this almost every Friday at Juma Salah that I'll make a point, sign announcement. And actually, I will give myself as an example, and I'll stand there and say, you know what? I know there are a lot of misconception and misinformation out there about the vaccines, but I can attest to you that me standing here, I am fully vaccinated, and it's been since February when I got my second dose, and I'm still standing and alive and kicking and with no problems. So the vaccine is safe, and it saves life. And like the saying goes, and I heard you say that, no one is safe until we are all safe, something like that, right? And I urge and implore the community members, everybody, if you are not vaccinated, please get vaccinated. Bring your kids, your family members from age 12, onwards, get vaccinated. I make sure in my household we are all fully vaccinated. Everybody is vaccinated, and we're still all around without any issues. So the vaccine is safe, and it saves lives.
Vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. The world get vaccinated before it's too late.
That you have the toilets over there at the back. You have the gents and ladies over there. Having said that, I want to introduce the members of the front table. You have on the extreme left, Fatou Toure. You have Faisuso representing the Europe branch of Pdois. You have Honorable Souaibou Toure, National Assembly member for Willy East. Then you have Halifa Sallah, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Organization for Independence and Socialism. You have Sidia Jata, the chairperson of the Central Committee of Pdois. You have Jabu Jo, representing the Pdois US branch. You have Mr. Adam Abba, a member of Pdois. In fact, the purpose of taking the podium is to introduce the chairperson, who is going to lead us by inviting this session to prayers to commence the engagement, the serious engagement that brought all of us here. But in our midst, we also have Dr. Jan, the party leader of APP. You have Mr. Alpha Robinson, Mr. Gano, Male Sala, and a host of other important dignitaries. For us in Pdois, each and every one of us is a dignitary. But sometimes it's necessary to also recognize the presence of certain individuals. And that's what I have done. I would now want to introduce the moderator of this engagement that brought us here. That is the rolling out of the Pdois Manifesto for the 2021 presidential election, which is going to be done by Halifa Sallah, the presidential candidate of Pdois. But the person who's going to do that is Dr. Hassan J, who is a member of the Pdois Technical Committee, Administrative Committee. One of the technical committees of Pdois is the Administrative Committee, and he's a member of that committee. It is by virtue of that that he is being identified by the membership of that committee to preside over this engagement. So you're welcome once again, and we wish that we have a very fruitful engagement that would usher in the march towards liberating this country come 4th December 2021 with the election of Halifa Sallah to institute the transformative agenda for system change for the Gambia. Thank you very much. I am Usman Silla.
Thank you very much, Honorable Usman Silla, for that eloquent introduction to the high table and the greetings to the members who are present here today. Before we start, I think I will indulge in you to just say an opening prayer on your own. I think 1 minute silence of any prayer that you can do for the success of this meeting, but also for the success of Pdois. Bismillah. Amen. Okay. May Allah strengthen our endeavors and our purpose, and may good come out of all our activities. Amen. It's my privilege to moderate this important milestone for the party, and that is the exposure and rolling out of the manifesto. We gather here for that exposure, and this manifesto, all of you will be aware that it embodies the mechanisms and the principles of system change and the uplifting of our people from poverty, but also the principles that will go against injustice and ignorance, which this party stands for. For the doubting Thomases, one of the values of this party, for its long-standing existence in the political space, is actually to vie for common good. And the whole system lacks that value of common good. Rather, we have a system that encourages self-centeredness. And this has been chronic, and it requires courage, a courageous leader, to really revamp and bring about the system that will usher us into prosperity, into good productivity. And that leader, we have it in the name of Halifa Babakar Saleh. He's manifested his good and strong character. He's manifested his long-standing commitment to make sure people change their mindset. And it's the people that will determine what change they would want. And that change should usher to make sure everybody sees himself or herself in the development agenda of this country. And this is what is lacking. This is exemplified by having a continuous recurrent budget without any development agenda, with the sole purpose of believing that only the civil servants and the middle class are supposed to enjoy the resources of this country at the expense of our majority of the poor people in the uprivers. This has to change if this country has to develop and if we have to catch up. And Pdois Party, through the strong leadership of President Saleh, is ready to change that. So without much ado, I would like to tell you what the agenda is. We'll have, first of all, an opening remarks by the chair of the Central Committee, Honorable Sidi Ejata. And then it will be followed by a statement by President Halifa Saleh. And no, he's the president, and we have to forget about the honorable. He's the president, Halifa Ababakar Saleh. following his statement, we will have media engagement, and then lastly, a public engagement. So before I call on Honorable Charter to make the opening remarks, I would just like to say that we are still continuing our fundraising drive. This party belongs to us. We would like contributions more to make sure we fulfill our intended activities. We have still, we first of all congratulate you for the great turnout of the nomination and the success of that nomination, but we still require your efforts. We still require your efforts, we still require your activities, we still require your contributions. So we solicit contributions to anybody who
manifesto must contain that. And that must be made accessible to the people for them to be able to make up their minds as to who to entrust with the responsibility of running the affairs of this country for the next 5 years. So campaign is precisely about contending manifestos. And it is the responsibility of the party and their candidate to make what the manifesto contains accessible to the people in order for them to be able to see all the manifestos that they have heard about, in order for them to be able to vote according to their will, according to their thinking. This particular candidate has the potential to fulfill our hopes and aspirations. And that is why a campaign is about talking to the people about what you intend to do. How do you want to run the affairs of their country in the next 5 years in their supreme interest and under their authority? Those who cast their votes are those who own this country and are those who own the authority and the voice of this country. Anybody they entrust that responsibility to is and should be under their control. If you don't have that, then you have a very sad situation where you may have an autocrat or a dictator to do things according to what he or she wants and in his or her own interest. Some of you here are militants of the party. Some of you are supporters. Some of you are sympathizers. But years. And for the last 56 years, we have been voting every 5 years. But for these 56 years, we have never succeeded in establishing a republic worth living in. Time has come for change. Nobody believed that the people of this country, the voters of the country, had power to change the regime that they established. They never believed that vote can take somebody out of the presidency. But 2016 helped and enlightened people, and in practical time, they proved to themselves that yes, they put people in power, and they can also take them out of that power. Because that power is a borrowed power, a power that they entrust to somebody. So it is a power that they can always take back if it does not serve their purpose. That education was achieved in 2016. Even kids participated in establishing that fact. And even kids believe in this country now that the vote can change a president. Of course, we had never succeeded in changing him through vote. Not until 2016. many years. So that education is there. So now is another fundamental change. And that change is the system change. And I am not going to go into talking about it. My friend and colleague would do that adequately. So, in order not to take much of his time, I thank you all very much for having come here, for the trouble you have taken to come here. And I hope and believe that by the time you leave this hall, you will leave with something worth of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Sri Jata, for that eloquent speech, opening statement. The statement, of course, underscoring the importance of a manifesto, whereby it comprises of activities to fulfill the aspirations and the hopes of the citizens. But another important underlining statement was that we need to be aware that this country has never succeeded as a country that we are proud of for a period of 56 years. And I think that's a real good, strong statement that everybody should really sit and reflect upon. Are we going to really continue the status quo, or do we really aspire for a system change? And that's true. It's only through that we can fulfill the hopes and the aspirations of our people. Thank you very much for that eloquent speech. I therefore now call upon the president of, he said president would be president, but I say the president, President Khalifa Abubakar Saleh.
I needed something. Well, you place on my. Do they have something? So you don't. Is there anything to extend? Okay, it's all right. It's all right. Then I'll just stop. We can put it as much.
Honorable Gambians present here, we have chosen this day to roll out the programmatic policy document of our party regarding the 2021 presidential election. Many would have wanted us to plan and ensure that this hall is full to capacity. I must apologize to those who felt that we should not roll it out this day. But we are compelled by necessity to do so. Yesterday, the IEC announced that I am among those who will be contesting the 2021 presidential election. It is therefore important that those who support us will know why they are supporting us. You should not cast your vote without knowing why you are casting it. So we'll take this as a process, as a starting point. And I was convinced that if we hold this during the week, many students will not be able to be present. This program is dedicated to the students of the Gambia. The drums are silent. Serenity has gripped this hall. My duty is to speak to your mind, to your heart, to your conscience, so that together we will develop a love of country and people and be ready to sacrifice to ensure that collectively we live in liberty, dignity, and prosperity. My duty is not just to give a speech that inspires. Today, I must be concrete. And we hope once you leave this hall, you'll be able to grab a copy of the manifesto and digest every element in it. The manifesto deals with all the aspects of development of our country. Fundamentally, it raises the key issues. How did we become a people? Gambia, as a nation, did not drop from the sky. The manifesto teaches us that we must know our history in order to know how to develop our country. That on the 3rd of August, 1889, the British decided to draw the external boundaries of the Gambia, and we were thus beginning the process of colonization, external colonization. By 1902, they had conquered all the kings and imposed internal colonization. But by 1920, our people began to struggle for self-determination. And consequently, that struggle developed to elective principle being introduced in 1947, the seed of your liberation, that you have a voice and you should determine your manner of government. But that was not the reality in 1947. Universal suffrage in 1960 without internal and external self-government. Consequently, we had to move another step on the 4th of October, 1963, to attain internal self-government without external self-government. In 1965, we attained both internal and external self-government without sovereignty, because Her Majesty was still the executive of the Gambia according to the 1965 Constitution. It was in 1970 that we became a sovereign republic. And that meant that each of us was an owner of this country, owner of the land, owner of power. We are told that Gambia is 11,285 square kilometers, that we have a territorial sea of 12 nautical miles, a contiguous zone of 24 nautical miles, an economic zone of 200 nautical miles. Internally moving 450 to 500 kilometers inland. We are told that this is our country. But the reality is that the external boundaries of the Gambia had never been properly drawn. We are saying within 6 months, we are going to negotiate with the Senegalese government so that we can draw the external boundaries of our country. For 56 years, it has not been done. That is when we know what we own. We're saying that ownership of a country should mean something. And that is why politics is so significant. We became a republic, but our people were not given the education necessary to know what being a sovereign person means. The manifesto says our primary objective is to ensure the sovereignty of the republic, but also the sovereignty of the people. We will introduce universal civic education, citizenship education in all our school systems, so that every Gambian will know how our nation emerged and will know one's rights and duties within our nation. We're saying that we must treat the Gambia as a community of citizens, equal in sovereignty, irrespective of religion, ethno-linguistic group, whatever divides, because each person is a depository of the sovereignty of our motherland. So we are saying that there is no minority in this country. Everybody belongs to the majority, and the majority constitutes the citizenry. Anybody who decides to belong to another group, you are seceding from the republic. And you will constitute a minority, because the citizens are always the majority. And that is what we are going to inculcate in the minds of our citizens. It is important why we are talking about a transformative agenda. The manifesto has 7 components. And these are drivers of the whole development of our country. There is the political component, the economic component, the social component, the civil component, the cultural component, the ecological component, and the external relations component. Each of those components has what we call policy directives, strategic objectives, programs, institutions, and action plans. Those elements constitute the locomotive that will help us to implement every element that we have in the action plan. For the political component, we are talking about political transformation. What does that mean? Nowhere in the world, nowhere, has the law of disintegration of the coercive forces of the state ever been put into operation. Monarchs all over the world established standing armies, security apparatus, arm them, establish prisons so that they can suppress and oppress their subjects. The colonial administration is no different. It had instruments, it had institutions, it had normative practices in order to impose its will on the Gambian people. We're saying the transformative agenda calls for the cooperative state. What does that mean? It means that all countries that fought against monarchies establish sovereign republics. And sovereign republics mean that the people constitute the depository of the sovereignty of the country. So each is an owner of the country, and each is a depository of the sovereignty of the country. Together, we have the cooperative sovereignty of the people. And based on that consent, you have those who govern our affairs. That's why we talk about the cooperative state. So the duty here is that we are going to implement that law, that the machinery that the monarchs established to oppress people will be dismantled. And therefore, it will be replaced by new instruments. It means that our army will no longer be seen as a killer machine used by tyrants to oppress their people or to oppress others in foreign land. We will transform that army into the most disciplined workforce in human history, so that they will begin to address the gaps that exist in our development process. They will be trained to be engineer corps, who will build works, build schools, build roads. They'll be given all the facilities so that they'll be able to construct whatever we need for our development. That is the type of army we are having. If they did succeed in taking charge of the destiny of this land. Conversely, in this type of armies, once they get rid of you, you have no other source of income. You must move into the security milieu to be able to survive. We are saying we'll put an end to that. Our armies will be schools for development. Our police forces will be mobile forces. We are saying that in each village, we'll replicate the state structures: health, education, security, every element, fire service, fire and rescue service. Everything will be replicated in the village, so that the villages will be trained to be able to administer those services. Those who are trained in health areas will be able to do first aid. They'll be able to do your sugar test, to do tests on hypertension, anything that is primary. Those people will be educated to be able to do it at the village level. They'll be able to maintain security at the village level. Where they see that they are powerless to be able to do so, then they call for our mobile police to come immediately to their assistance. That is the type of police force we are going to construct. A police force which is community-based, which is linked with the community, linked with the aspirations of the community, is there to serve the community. That is how we are going to dismantle what has been inherited from the colonial order and build what is necessary under the cooperative state. We are saying that those new police officers with new mindset will no longer need, supported by the community, will no longer need to use handcuffs, which is torture, or put people in congested prisons waiting for trial, because all that will come to an end, because the community will be cohesive. And that cohesion of the community will require the village elders to be given the responsibility to be able to build their offsprings, so that no threat to justice will ever be imminent. We are saying for non-capital crimes, we will ensure that there is community service, that people serve the community rather than being sent to jail, because we want to move towards rehabilitative justice rather than retributive justice. That is the difference. We're saying that this new cooperative state will require a constitution, and we are going to encourage the citizenry to look at the history of constitutional development in our country and how it evolved to be what it is today, and what must be done to ensure that we put an end to self-perpetuating rule. First and foremost, we are promising that to put an end to self-perpetuating rule, the Pdois presidency in 2021, if selected, would actually commit itself to a one-term presidency. And as a force of example, we'll move towards constitutional evolution to establish a two-term presidency. That is what is in the manifesto. That new constitution will involve the people in all branches of the state. There will be a presidency advisory committee that will be selected by civil society that will meet with cabinet quarterly in order to indicate the general concerns of the population, and that will be constitutionally established. That committee will be given right of hearing at the National Assembly so that they'll be able to table their reports. Currently, only National Assembly members and ministers can table report before the plenary. The Constitution should change so that certain institutions that would represent the voices of the people will be given audience to be able to address the National Assembly regarding the concerns of the people. They will also move to ensure that the judiciary will have that element, that when it comes to tribunal at the level of the communities, we will have a jury system attached to those tribunals so that the people will participate in actually enhancing the dispensation of justice. We're saying that we will establish a system where men and women will be equal in cabinet representation. Not only that, we advocate for proportional representation so that that equality will also reflect at the level of the National Assembly and at the level of the country. We will ensure that those people with disability, whom we call in the manifesto people with different physical features, would actually have responsibility in being represented in cabinet, represented in National Assembly and in council, in all decision-making organs of the state. From the political component, it is rich. I will leave the rest for you to go and search, find, and share what is there. My duty is simply to summarize, to entice you to want to read the manifesto. It has a sense of history, but it's also very practical in demonstrating what ought to be done to transform what we call the coercive nature of the state and introduce the cooperative nature of the state, which is an instrument of protection of the people rather than an instrument of coercion. We move to the economic domain. We are told that we own the sea, we own the land, but poverty still prevails. How do we end that poverty? We are told that in 2020, we have 3 branches that contribute to the GDP. Agriculture, and in 2020, 18%. Industry, in 2020, 20%. And services in 2020, 55%. 7% left, other sectors. But if you look at agriculture, it has never been able to ensure that we, the Gambian people, can feed ourselves. We have arable land of 550,000 hectares, the manifesto says. But only 57% is now being cultivated. We need rice production in order to have rice self-sufficiency. We consume between 200,000 up to 350,000 metric tons of rice, taking different periods. But we produce between 22,000 and 57,000, taking different periods. So the bulk of the rice we consume is imported. And we have shown the import statistics, where during Jawara's time, you will see a trade deficit of 1.5 billion. By 2016, Jammeh's time, 11.9 billion. By 2017, 24.5 billion in trade deficit. We are not exporting. We are importing most of the things we are consuming. Yet we have the arable land. What is the problem? The people do not have the fertilizer seed farming implements to be able to produce. So consequently, we are hoping that there will be external investment in our agriculture in order to facilitate its development. Currently, you find villages signing contracts with external investors, giving whole land to them so that they can cultivate banana and they will sell it abroad, use their labor, and at the end of the day, at their expense. That's not the type of agriculture that can eradicate poverty. It is important also for you to bear in mind that, as the manifesto says, we have the state which must provide services. But currently this state, 25.7 billion in 2021, over 13 billion comes from taxes, and only 1.5 from non-tax revenue. So essentially then, we're relying mainly on taxes, grants, and loans to be able to run this state. This is not sustainable. So what do we do? That is the question. The transformative agenda emphasizes that if you see Kuwait developing today, if you see Singapore developing today, if you see Norway moving to the level that it is today, they utilize their natural resources, their mineral resources, their oil resources, depending on the country you're talking about, in order to maximize the accumulation of sovereign national wealth. So it's now a law of development, and anybody can come and question that, and we'll show you why it is a law of development. That development that is universal and comprehensive in the economic sphere to eradicate poverty is inconceivable without accumulation of sovereign national wealth. And that is why we are saying that at the level of the central bank, we will ensure that we create a sovereign national wealth fund. We will try to expand the productive base of the economy. And an example, we have a navy, which is there simply to protect our waters. And they cannot have enough fuel. They cannot buy new vessels. They are depending on charity to be able to get the equipment that they need. We are saying that the Navy should have a branch, a fishing fleet, that will be able to produce and maintain the Navy and also contribute to sovereign national wealth accumulation. The minerals and all that. The public enterprises, all the institutions of the state should contribute to sovereign national wealth. And by doing so, we can have two branches at the central bank for investment. One is to ensure a cooperative bank that will give seed, fertilizer, farming implements to farmers, to horticultural gardeners, will also give those who are engaged in processing, those who are also engaging in marketing the produce from processing. All these people will be able to get loans that are interest-free. Interest-free. Why? Because it works. Many people had misled the Gambian people to believe that what Pdois is talking about when he says socialism is alien to the Gambia. When every single day you go to the market, you find the women having their osusu. They will put all this money together and give it to one person. The person will invest it and improve the earning capacity of that person. But that person always pays the same amount that others are paying until the circles end. We are saying the wealth of the nation belongs to all of us. Rather than having political parties that will come together and agree to share the cake, one becomes minister of this, one another minister of that, one another minister of that, and then you see nothing going to the people. We are saying this sharing this time will be a sharing that will reach the households, that will reach the communities. That's the transformative agenda. So that a part of the resources from the sovereign national wealth will go to the GTI student who had got training in some form of technical know-how or some auto mechanic to be able to have all the gadgets to be able to establish a workshop. A person who wants to be a carpenter to have all the gadgets that are necessary so that people will become producers from our national coffers. They will not become beggars. That's what we are saying. But then at the same time, there must be a branch that will be a sovereign wealth investment fund, SWIFT, whose objective is to take the sovereign wealth and invest it in our ocean and other productive enterprises. And even find for Gambians who are now established and would want to go into the sub-region to be able to expand their businesses, they will form public-private enterprises so that we can benefit from the market of scale. And therefore, those enterprises will be able to generate income so that you can cushion the soft loan you are giving interest-free. That is how the nation can develop and ensure that all sectors of the economy would participate in that development. This is what we are talking about. We're saying that all the statistics reveal that the National Development Plan, which indicated growth in terms of livestock, in terms of small ruminants, all sorts of development that they predicted in terms of fishing, etc. All the statistics are there in the manifesto. But you will not see any concrete plan to show how they are going to invest in that sector to be able to achieve what they want to achieve. And that is generally what has been the case in Gambian development. You have all these beautiful plans, but the objective is to have good donor conferences and hope that the donors will actually facilitate their implementation. And if donors do not come, as in this case, we were told by the minister in 2019 that all they were able to contribute 2019 to 2020 was 183 million out of 2.4 billion, about 10%. So it means that all those projects, beautiful projects, eloquently articulated, cannot be put into operation. So that is what we are saying, that we will transform the whole economic base, agriculture in that instance. But we'll also have 3 phases of industrial revolution. We'll have the primary phase where we link appropriate technology to the processing of the agricultural produce that we have, the coos, the groundnuts, the milk. And the first task is to establish a commission that will ensure that every village will prepare a database of all the labor-saving devices they have in the village. And we have technicians who will go and study them to know where they're imported, the spare parts they need. The importers will engage the importers so that ultimately we will regularize the use of labor-saving devices. in such a way that it will serve the economy. We believe that that process will be able to produce couscous, process it in the flour, and bake it into bread right here in our own homeland. And our own people will be running those enterprises, supported by the cooperative bank. This is what we are saying. And those who had gone to the higher level of building productive enterprises, if they can convince the state that investment will serve the interest of the state, not a loss, the sovereign wealth investment fund will be able to come to their aid. Then we'll become competitive all over the world. That's what we are saying. The rest is there. The second phase of industrialization is to move into light-scale industry, encouraging accumulation and investment in light-scale industry. An example is very clear. We went to Ngehel Sanjal, so these women, they produce all the tomato that could be produced, but they cannot sell it. But you can have a factory that can transform it into tomato paste. We can study that. So it means that the secondary phase, we will study how to move from the primary phase, which requires less technological innovation and technological input, and move to the secondary phase, which will require more technical input, greater investment. And finally, we'll move to the tertiary phase, where we start to build the machines that we consume in collaboration with Africa as a continent that would have, by that time, seen the need to come together and produce all the basic things that we need in farming, etc. This is what the transformative agenda is talking about. In terms of services that we will ensure, look at the hotel industry. Government invests in Ocean Bay. Invested millions to rehabilitate it. But how will they recover that money? So we are saying that that area should be for the private sector, because you are depending on external forces to be able to enrich that area. But we'll add a caveat. We will ensure that we will have people-centered tourism, where we will tell our partners that when you are coming to the Gambia, you are helping us to eradicate poverty. We will be able to set up a commission that will identify all the products that the tourists would want to buy. And then the cooperative bank will assist all those women who are weaving, who are doing pottery, and men doing carving, will identify everyone who is capable of producing what a tourist will consume, and then annually determine how much of the product will be consumed by the tourists. It is estimated that you're going to have 350,000 tourists if everything is normal, if COVID-19 is defeated. And we can't defeat COVID-19 by having universal vaccination. This small nation, we can vaccinate everybody. And if we do, it means that we put the country to our advantage, where anybody in the world will want to come to the Gambia for us. So health will be linked to economics. That's what we are talking about. So it means that if you say each tourist, 350,000 of them, spend just $100 to buy a Gambian product, then it means, or some Gambian product, it means you are actually contributing nothing less than $1.5 billion in the Gambian economy annually. That's what we are talking about. Services can actually contribute to eradication of poverty. So we want to build a system that is people-centered, an economy that is people-centered. We move to the social component. We are convinced that there is a law of development which calls for a balanced and proportional development of all sectors of society. And unless that law is adhered to, there will be an imbalance in growth and development. That is what we must eradicate. We're saying, therefore, we must link household development to community development. Community development and household development are irretrievably linked. One cannot go without the other. They are connected with, dependent on, and determined by each other. So we must look at them in tandem when it comes to planning and development. We are saying that for 56 years, you will not find a single Gambian village with a village development committee that has a village treasury. How will they bring about development? We say that architecture must be dismantled. That every village must now have a village treasury, and the village treasury will be a depository of all the rates and licenses, cattle taxes, whatever is paid in that village will go to that village treasury. It should not go to the area councils. Governments have been in charge of area councils for decades. Where is the development? Where is the development? But all the funds from the villages go to them. We are saying that must end. And to put it on an end, we're saying that each village must have a treasury, and that treasury must be the depository of all the monies that are actually taken from that village, that are earned by the village. Well, how will the area council function? How would the district council function? Because we are talking about district councils and area councils or regional councils. We are saying we must change the whole architecture of our revenue allocation. The revenue allocation should be regional. That we must examine all the sectors of development and ensure that a part of the national budget will now be divided among the regions to facilitate the development of villages, districts, and regions. So annually, in allocating the budget, the regional allocation will be done. And annually, the Village Development Committee will sit with the villagers and plan the village. They will examine what the village needs: universal solar provision of light, or wind energy, better roads, village garden having borehole and fences, streets being properly shaped and planned. So they will plan how to develop the community. So in that regard, they will be able to calculate their priorities. And when they do, they will be able to see whether they have enough resources to implement. If they don't, then the district can come to assist, or the region can come to assist, the nation can come to assist. This is how development can take place in our villages and ensure that there is a balanced and proportionate development of all sides of the country. We are saying that if you increase home income, and you can also increase village income, before you give some investor and say, take this land, get the villages to go banana, why don't the cooperative bank give the loan to that village to have all the investment necessary to be able to produce that banana, sell it, and earn, and put it in the village treasury for village development? Why is that impossible? Why is that impossible when we all own the wealth of the country? That's what we are talking about. Villages will have aquaculture, whatever means through which they can earn more money to put in their treasury for village development. But you will see the rest in the manifesto. We're saying the other component that is more than significant is the Gambian child. That the child is not only the child of the parents, it's also a child of the nation. And the nation has responsibility in the bringing up of that child. We're saying from prenatal all the way to 12-year education, the nation must be present. First and foremost, for mothers, pregnant mothers, we are saying 3 months leave before childbirth and 9 months leave after childbirth. To enable lactating mothers to take good care of our Gambian child. Not only that, because as the child gets stronger and stronger, there is need for greater care. So we are going to involve the fathers, that the fathers will have 6 months reduced workload and then 3 months leave to be able to ferry children from nursery schools back to their homes. We are saying that that child at nursery school should have free early childhood education at state expense. We are saying that child must be brought up to understand the body, internal and external, understand nature, and understand how to harness from nature what we need to survive at that early age. And then we move to the under 6 child who would be taken care of in these early childhood centers at state expense, properly trained and brought up, and then move from the 6 to from 6 years to 12 years. It means 6 years of post-early childhood education. That basic education must prepare that child in 2 ways. Yes, reading and writing, arithmetic, but also in values, also in technical know-how, to see how to apply knowledge. We want to create an education system that applies knowledge and therefore help the child to see how knowledge can actually be utilized for development. So the education system is going to change. We are also going to help that child to know that he or she is a sovereign person, endowed with right to be able to select. So therefore, we will have people age in those schools where the children themselves will elect those aides, and those aides will assist the teachers in terms of helping to maintain classroom order. So therefore, the children will begin to develop some sense of responsibility at that early age. We're saying, you will see the rest, that basic education will go up to 1 to 12th grade. And it will be free, compulsory, and available. And the first thing we're going to do before actually implementing that, if you look at Section 30 of the Constitution, it says that basic education must be free, compulsory, and available, accessible. Then it goes to the secondary level and says that it must be accessible and affordable, and progressively move towards free education. At the tertiary level, progressively move towards free education. What is progressively moving? Is it increasing or decreasing? The cost of education should be decreasing. Therefore, we will honor the Constitution by immediately establishing an education commission that will look into that and to see how we can reverse the cost of education back to what it should have been in terms of implementing the progressive introduction of free education. And then we move into actually giving free education to our children. We are saying after the 12th grade, we'll introduce a national service where all those children will be able to select where they're going to be in order to build up their knowledge base and skill base. All this delinquency that people talk about will be eradicated because these people will have a sense of purpose and direction, and they will be taught to love their country love their people, and prepare for sovereign living and sovereign citizenship. That's how you build the nation and its future. Well, read the manifesto. It goes into different ages, those who are youth, and how they can be prepared to live contributive and productive lives, and how we can build up the branches of the economy we have already shown you, where they can be integrated and assisted to be able to add value to our economy. We have moved in the manifesto to all the way to old age, so that the person who serves the nation will not just be dumped as if the person has no value, but that person will live a dignified life, and they will be constituted into committees that will be able, in their areas of development, to be able to help others in order to gain greater experience and have more knowledge. The society will prepare for them how they can serve after retirement and reward for their services. So in short, we have seen that the individual household will benefit, and introducing free meals for children is one of our programs. That the child that goes to school will have free breakfast and free lunch. And the parent who goes to work, the same. Because if you think that by increasing salaries, you're actually fighting poverty, that will be a sad mistake. What you need to do is to ensure that the weight of the cost of living goes down. And if you can provide meals to the children, provide buses to the children, provide buses to the workers, and meals to the workers, then you have removed quite a heavy load from their heads. That is the direction we are taking. And it's a direction of productivity, and direction where the child also becomes more interested in going to school. The social program is elaborate. You may look into it. We also have the civic component, where we want to prepare a society of justice, where injustice will disappear. That, just to give you a brief contribution, that will make sure that all these human rights defenders would be given the responsibility to be able to enter into any police station, go into any areas of detention to find out any information that is necessary, as long as they obey the rules. In this way, we prevent any form of injustice. We're going to encourage our people to develop knowledge of the law, and the media to have the ability to gather information and engage in self-regulation. Because civil right is about your freedom of association, your freedom of assembly, your freedom of religion, your freedom of expression, all the freedoms. And we are going to ensure that all those freedoms are properly protected. It's more elaborate in the manifesto. We've also dealt with the issue of culture. We said culture is a living organ. It's a living organ in society. It lives. But you have tradition, which is a skeleton of a past culture that still survives in a given evolving culture. And you have a customs which are living traditions that are now imposed by sanctions. So what we ought to do is to look at our culture at all levels and see any culture that is alien to our development, any culture that is alien to our unity as a nation. We must identify that by creating a commission that will look into that so that we can eradicate it.